Hi everyone, I hope you're well. Look, I thought I'd do this video. I mentioned it before I left. I've been back for 5 days or so now from that US study tour that we took. Had 5 days over in the States, 5 working days that is, a travel day in between New York and San Francisco, and then travel to and from, of course, which stretched it out to about 9 days in total, 9.5 days. So like I said, I said I'd give a quick video. Quick video is pretty difficult. It was 5 days of sessions, and really interesting, lengthy sessions, fascinating people, highly educated, highly connected people who were really great, willing to share their understanding of things with us and their opinions, and it was really a beneficial trip, and I wanted to report that back to everybody. Just like I said, it's not going to be a quick video. I'll try and make it quick, but I guess the people who are interested really in hearing a bit more about it, you know, it'll be a reasonable length, but still vastly condensed, and I've got a whole lot more information and can get a whole lot more information. So if there are any aspects that maybe you were wondering about that I'm not going to cover in this, or that you'd like more information on, you know, you just have to give us a call or an email, and happy to share everything that we came across. Look, so just quickly, the background of it was that we use Quilla Consulting, an external firm for our economic research, geopolitical research, and that then paints for us, for our investment committee here, a picture of what the environment's like economically, geopolitically, and then we can, you know, get an idea of what types of investments might suit us best looking forward. So that's then goes straight to our portfolio selections and switching and that kind of thing. So they were good enough to arrange all of this and host us over there. For the sake of clarity, I paid my own airfares to and from, and spending money and all the rest of it, but they had sponsored you know, it's these sessions, and we were catered for over there and everything. But it was really beneficial and worth the time, which was a bit of a wrestle at the beginning. You know, is it worth this much time away? But I think it really was. Just quickly, we spent most of the time in New York. Arrived Sunday night, and then had Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in New York with PIMCO, who's in a lot of people's portfolios. Lazard, 175-year-old. Merchant bank originally, and now fund manager giant. Really interesting session with Casisto, which is an AI firm. They have links to Australia. They're owned ultimately by a venture with Westpac, and they do AI for business and finance and banking, so those chatbots and things like that you might see. Really interesting. And KKR, who's a merchant bank as well, and has gone into fund management, which is our involvement with them more recently. Thursday we travelled to San Francisco, and then Friday we met with Fisher Investments, which was really interesting as well. Again, second or third generation investment firm. And then we had the weekend there just as a bit of an unwind, a bit of a debrief with everybody in the Sonoma Valley. So that was a nice little way to finish things off, wine country. And we were left on Sunday night to come home, but of course with time differences it was Tuesday before arriving. But like I said, a bit of background, and it's already 3 minutes gone. So I thought what I'd do is give a quickish rundown of a couple of the key observations that I think people are interested in, that I certainly was and asked about, but then, like I said, invite you to ask more questions if you're interested later on. The US elections were naturally the main interest point probably, and because that flows on too, of course, into investments and other things. But you know, there were so many other tariffs, foreign policy, immigration, all of these things, Middle East, what's happening in Europe, some of the, you know, China and Taiwan and those things that we spoke about that I won't cover in great detail here, because I'll keep it to just a couple of points that I'll hopefully cover quite well, or, you know, comprehensively at least. The AI probably first topic was something that I just mentioned was really interesting, and is a topic on everybody's minds, or a lot of people's minds at the moment. And a couple of weeks ago we sent out that little voice altering or voice manufacturing software thing that you may have found interesting. Casisto is this firm we were talking to, and they do chatbots and those kinds of things for clients like BT and Westpac and Wells Fargo and JP Morgan and big worldwide companies like that. They were fascinating, and the rate of progress, unsurprisingly, is amazing. Is it scary? I think we're getting more used to it as we go. I think just being aware of it and wary of it's a good place to start from. They showed us one thing that I think was interesting, and while those chatbots and things you might deal with on bank websites, where they ask questions and answer on your response, that's all really interesting. But they showed us a video which is basically a home loan interview, and it was with an avatar or a bot, whatever you want to call it, and it was really quite interactive, and they reckon that things like that are going to be much more almost perfected within the next 5 years. So things like loan interviews and whatnot might be done virtually, I don't know if that's the right word, but done on this sort of automated or AI kind of a format. And that was really one way of making their main point, and a lot of people worry about how it affects things, and we talk about it, what does it mean for financial advice? And I guess ultimately where it landed was that these AI developments will work really well in what they called a rules-based environment, so versus what we do, say a principles-based one, where so a rules-based one where there's more black and white responses and pathways to take, so that can drive itself as it goes through an interview, for example. Whereas and also, sorry, that would apply on very basic financial advice, robo advice they're starting to call it already. But where people have more personal needs, higher needs, more sophisticated needs, then that's more a principles-based environment, and thankfully that doesn't look like any way to replace us just yet, which is nice. So the AI thing was fascinating, but it's only a little bit of what we talked about. Federal independent, the Fed, the US Reserve Bank. One question I had and was curious about was, because there's a lot of talk about it and how independent it is, and how independent it might remain, particularly because if the Trump administration gets in, there's always that lot of talk, that threatening talk, or about sort of trying to influence their behaviour. And happily, a lot of it is talk. A lot of it is bluster. The good news, I think, was that they had every confidence it would remain. Each of the firms we spoke to had every confidence it remains impartial and unaffected, which is really important, of course. Bernard Bernanke, you might remember that name from, I don't know, half a dozen or 10 years ago. He was the chairman of the Fed. He now works for PIMCO, the firm we saw on Monday. And so they get a lot of a lot of informed conversation from him. But the thing that rang true from all of the conversations at all of the places was this: it's just simply a fact where, say, a Trump administration could replace the chair, even though they all think that's unlikely, but he could. However, he can't really change the composition of the board to any degree. They all have 14-year terms, which is really, I didn't know that, but it's really important. And that was designed so that the political cycle couldn't interfere. The board, I think there's 19 of them as well, the board members. So and their terms are staggered. So it's not like there's a whole tranche of them changing over all at the same time. So that was reassuring to me, at least, that there was no, that could remain independent, because that's their setting of rate policy and whatnot's the driver for so many things. So they need to be able to make their decisions. They might get a bit of flack in the media from some of the political heavies, but at least they can make their decisions, as it seems, without interference. One of the speakers described the Fed as the best collection of public servants outside of the military. Said there was over 300 PhD qualified public servants in the Fed. So that gives you an idea of the size of the place as well, but also the clout. And that's important, I think, and reassuring to know. But really, and I know we're approaching 10 minutes already, but like I said, I think it's it's important not to trim the conversation down to the point that it's useless. But like I said, there's tons more even on top of what I'm saying now. The election obviously was one of the main topics of conversation. All agreed it was. It used to be a more a race-driven thing, supporters for one party or the other, but all noticed that it was more based much more on gender now, much more on gender and education levels even than it has been in the past. 60 or more % of women support the Democrats, regardless of race, regardless of religion. Pardon me. And it's more than 60% of non-tertiary qualified and males who are leaning towards the Republican Party these days. Now, that has an influence, of course, and it's interesting to see where that heads if that gulf continues to widen, because that splits households, obviously, things like that, or potentially can. So, pardon me. And the issues in order that are primarily driving voter behaviour on this election, at least, is inflation first, immigration second, the economy third, and reproductive rights fourth. So that's a major thing. And there seems to be a more prominent push for people to take single issues as their main driver to vote. So that could be interesting as well. I guess on a general sense, the coverage I saw, there was quite a lot on TV, but on the news channels only. Every other aspect of life seemed no different to any other time we've been there, where it's just normal. Like here, walking around, you don't see signs everywhere, you don't see people on the streets talking about it. But on the news channels, yes. And pardon me. And the general view all around is that it's going to be close. Kamala Harris's campaign, as we all know, I think got away to a pretty good start when she took over, but over the last couple of weeks the Trump campaign's been making ground, and to the extent that the pundits we spoke to thought that he was probably most likely to have a small win, though who knows. They all agree that the polls, like we see here and like we've seen everywhere else, are becoming less reliable. Excuse me. I think it's important to note too that most of the speakers had the same view, that a lot of the policies being spoken about are talk. I mean, which is maybe a good thing, because most of them are very inflationary as well. But unless there's a landslide win one way or the other, pardon me, a close win would see kind of a lot of these policies just not get through, all these proposals that are being floated now. So that was interesting. I think social unrest has been a bit of a query here, maybe in Australia, or with minds fresh from last time. But one commentator said he thought the worst result was if the Democrats had a small win, because that would open the floodgates then to challenges and all these kinds of things, potentially social unrest. But most of the others were less worried about that than I expected, which is reassuring and good. And when I say these speakers too, I should say as well, they're highly connected. They have these geopolitical units that are based in Washington. They're all former State Department secretaries and CIAs. General Petraeus, if you remember that name from the military service, he was Secretary of State, I think, or Deputy Secretary of State for quite a long time. So these people, that's where they get this sort of, I don't know if it's intel, but get these views and maybe a deeper understanding of what's said versus what can really happen in the background. So, but the unrest side of things, most thought that the big difference, and it's an obvious one when you hear about it, is that most challenging you would expect would come if the Republicans lose, especially narrowly, given history, given conduct in the past. But the difference this time is that they're coming from being not in power. So in 2020 they were in power, and therefore could more easily not cede it without problems. So That's significant, I think. The other thing too is that this has happened before now, so people are on their toes a little bit more. The Democrats are in charge, so they've been obviously thinking about this for a little bit of time and can have security measures in place. The other thing one of them pointed out too was that in 2020, since 2020, these laws have been challenged and tested in court. So there's also been a number of electoral laws passed and amended to make it more difficult to challenge. So that's all interesting, and it all makes sense when you think about it. I think more of a worry for most of these people was at the state level, not the federal level. So that state level, where we've seen it in the past as well, where their systems probably allow a little bit more top-down pressure to be applied to them. And as was said by one of the speakers, Donald Trump's got a playbook now on how to do that. So that's something to watch, I guess. But again, you know, forewarned is forearmed, I suppose, and most of them think it might be a worry, but that, you know, they'll handle it. An interesting point too was that it's not a popularity vote. So despite what anyone thinks of the personalities, it won't matter. That collegiate system they have, pardon me, promotes, if you like, or allows this to be the case. One of the points made was, you know, we said about, well, you know, are these the, and everyone asked that, are these the best candidates America can spit up? And how do these things progress as far as they do? And the answer simply was the system. It was pointed out that the primaries over there reward the most dedicated partisans, was the wording used. So, you know, only 30% of people you know, is enough to influence the rest of the party. And so, as again, quote, 30% of rabid supporters can threaten the positions of any other critics. So, and unfortunately, that system doesn't filter that out, or doesn't allow for that to be patted down, diluted. So, the note was made that, excuse me, there's in European politics, it's a similar dynamic where you have about 30-odd%, or a significant minority at least, who lean to the extreme ends of politics, one or the other, and but the systems in countries like France and Germany just don't permit that to progress to the point where they take government. So, you know, it was widely picked that Trump will absolutely lose the popular vote, and that won't matter. It won't stop him necessarily winning the vote itself. Beg your pardon. So that's more the worry there. I guess the other thing then, in closing, and we're pushing 20 minutes. I'm sorry about that, but you know, there was talk of geopolitics, so we can talk about that. And again, the talk there was that there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of stuff said out in the open, but in the background things happen, things get sorted out, was the wording used. For the financial markets, we've seen it already, where the financial markets appear to be, excuse me, the share markets just don't seem to be worried at all, almost ignoring the fact that there's an election coming up. So, excuse me. You know, a Harris win would see continuity, which markets like, but also those log jams where they don't, you know, they don't have power in both houses, and but their policies are good for some sectors, like we see all the time in markets, where, you know, recessions are good for some sectors of the market. You know, they can thrive in that. So if it's a Trump win, on the other hand, it'd be a freer flowing government, which markets also like. So policies are good for some sectors. So again, you know, what we tend to see is turbulence before elections, while there's that uncertainty, and then when a result happens, the markets know what's going on then. So there can be a chance after some amount of time, usually short-term volatility to normalise and steady. But on the other hand too, the markets have been quite steady going up, so it's quite reasonable to expect that there might just be a knee-jerk small reaction one way or the other after the election, and then it normalises. But again, back to every other video just about I've ever sent where we talk about being positioned to ride through volatility. So that's what's important again. So market behaviour now probably supports the scenario that it is a really close call, and whoever gets in probably won't be able to make an awful lot of changes to things anyway, given the closeness of it all. Um, that's probably the main thing. I think it was reassuring for us to see that that the place is normal, unlike the impression you get sometimes when you watch the news. The place is normal. A lot of the sideshow goes on around everybody and above everybody, and people, like they do everywhere, just get on with life and get on with doing what they need to do. So while no doubt there's plenty of problems over there, it'll be interesting to see the elections this week. So it'll be interesting to see the coverage, and like I said, I've got tons more information. I hope this video was useful and gave a little bit of an insight into what I was up to. And like I said, I urge you anytime, like any time on any matter, if you have queries or want more info, all you need to do is get in touch. Phone call, email, whatever you like, I'll be here. So I hope everyone's well. Christmas is fast approaching. We're in November now, so let's look forward to a good finish to the year, and like I said, it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of days. I think I'll have some info after the election too, so whether I shoot an email out or another hopefully quicker video, we'll be in touch anyway. All right, take care. Thanks. Bye bye.